So this week's parsha talks about an idea which is called Vidui, which is the idea that in a certain year, you have to give certain meisers, certain years. So at the end of the third year, the beginning of the fourth year, there's Erev Pesach. There's an idea of saying Vidui Meiser. Vidui Meiser means Vidui generally is translated as a confession. So a confession of tithing. The confession is saying basically that you tithe. And the way the pasuk tells us is after you finish doing all the Meiser, you say in front of Hashem, I released all the Kodesh, anything that was holy, had to be given to the Kohen of Levi. God was like, Levi, Leger, Yasa, I'm going to give my Sa'ani. I gave away all the Mises, all the tithing, to the Kohen, to the Levi, and to the Levi. Lo yachalti men b'oini, lo yachalti men b'tamid, lo yachalti men l'meis. Shemati b'kol Hashem l'kei asisi kol ha'shetzim yasami. You say basically, I did everything I was told to do. I did it exactly the way it should be done. And therefore you say, Hashem now revealed blessings to me. This is called the Vidui of Meiser, confession of Meiser. Now, the interesting question is, why is this called Vidui? Now, Vidui, normally you think of Vidui as the word, as a confession. Usually it's a confession of sins. I've done this wrong, I've done that wrong, I've done the other thing wrong. Why is this a confession? And is Vidui a word, does Vidui mean confession? So this is a question that the Tesis Yom Tov asks this question. He brings it down in the name of the Sephorna. So the Sephorna on page 1, the Sephorna answers the question. He doesn't ask the question, but through what the Sephorna explains, we understand an answer to the question of why is it called a Vidui Meiser? Why is it called Vidui? Why is it called a confession? It's almost a confession of things that you done correctly, a positive confession. But the Sephorna says the reason why it's called Vidui, the reason why it's called a confession, that the reason why it's called a Vidui, the reason why it's called a confession of sin, is because it's saying that because of the story of the golden calf, the originally Trumas and Mises were going to be given to the Becharim, to the firstborn, and it's only because of that. The pasuk says in Yecheskel that because there was a sin, the firstborn do not get Trumas and Mises. So therefore, it's called a confession of a sin confession, reminding us of the sin of the story of the golden calf. That's the pshat. Places Yom brings on this Sephorna in Meiser Sheni. He brings it down to understand why is it called Vidui Meiser. But the truth is that when we think of the word Vidui, we normally do think that the word means a confession. Usually it's a confession of sin, that you're confessing of things that you've done wrong. But who said it's true? Maybe confession means an admission of things that you've done positive. Just like you can verbalize saying that things haven't worked out, and I've sinned, I've done this and that and the other thing. Or right? You say all the things of Vidui, which is classically that's called Vidui. Vidui is called Shamnu, is the penitent saying things that have done negative. Vidui could also actually mean I did exactly what you said, and I'm a good guy. And therefore giving the blessings. So Vidui, confession, whatever that word means, we'll see if you can understand what this word means a little bit. Whatever this word means, and whatever the intention can mean, it can actually also mean not just saying something that's negative of a person, but a person could say proudly, this is the way I did it, and it's called a Vidui. So it's called a type of confession, but it's not a confession of your negative traits, but it's a confession of that I'm good. And therefore, and therefore I deserve blessing. So we see that in the Torah, if we use this, not like the Sephorna, we understand this a little differently. we'll understand that there's a vidui of something that's negative, confessing something that's negative, and you have done something negative. And there's also a type of confession where saying, I've actually done something positive. And they're both. Huh? That's a good question. That's a good question. What's the shayr? That's really the question, what that word means. Huh? Vada? Yeah, Vada comes from vidui. Right, from Masada, so you're confessing, you're pouring yourself out. Remember, we'll see soon from itself. Well, he has different understanding what the word vidui is. Vada? A certainty of what? Right. Certainty could be a certainty of both. Right. Exactly. It can be certain that I did something bad, it can be certain that I'm doing something good. Right. So, but I'm saying colloquially, the right generally, we think about the word vidui in our mind. We think the word vidui, we immediately think that the vidui means a confession of sin. But not necessarily. Maybe vidui is actually, I'm a great person, I do good things in this world, and therefore Hashem, I deserve the blessings. That's what you actually say. That's called vidui meiser. It's called a vidui meiser. It's saying I did actually kasher tzivusani, exactly what you said, and therefore you use the response as a shkifa b'oish comes from Shemai. Now, therefore, bless me. Which is a very different understanding of vidui, but a positive vidui. So let's go down. Let's begin a little bit with the Rambam. We'll try to get step by step. We'll start with the Rambam. When the Hilchos Teshuva, the laws of teshuva. So this is first of all, this is a chiddush. This is a big novelty in general. The whole idea of halachas of teshuva. There's no Gemara teshuva. There's no Mishnayos teshuva. There's Mishnayos that speak about teshuva and Hilchos and Mishnayos Yuma. But the Rambam was the first one to write an actually a Hilchos teshuva, like halacha of teshuva. So this is like how do you do teshuva, like practically. So everyone knows teshuva is a returning. So what is it actually? How do you do this practically? So
the Sefer Chinuch come before the Rambam?
No, after. The Sefer Chinuch comes after. Sefer Chinuch is about 100 years after the Rambam. We actually, we don't know who's the author of the Sefer Chinuch. Some say that it's of Aaron. Aaron was one of the Gedolim, sometimes the Ramban that lives in Barcelona. We're not actually sure exactly who the author is.
There's no other precedent for such a Hilchos teshuva.
No, the Rambam was the first one to write a Hilchos teshuva. The Shiur of Rabbeinu Yonah, which is a little bit later, also the Shiur of Rabbeinu Yonah is of Gerona, so that's more up. I don't know if you know a little bit. There were the Rambam was in Andalus, Lower Granada, Cordova, and they're near Barcelona. Rabbeinu Yonah of Gerona, which is a mechutin, was their children. The child of Ramban married the child of Rabbeinu Yonah. Anyways, so he also wrote a Shiur Teshuva. Incidentally, the legend is that the Shiur Teshuva of Rabbeinu Yonah was written for burning the Rambam, right? Because the Ramban, his mechutin, convinced him that he did a terrible thing by burning the Svarim of the Rambam. Because the Ramban was the great defender of the Rambam, and Rabbeinu Yonah wrote a Hilchos Teshuva, like a Shiur Teshuva, basically for himself. Anyways, so what does the Rambam write? The Rambam writes in Hilchos Teshuva like this: that Kol mitzvahs Shabbat. This is the Rambam's writes. All the mitzvahs of the Torah, both the essay, both the positive and negative, etc. When a person does teshuva and he returns from his path, then a person should do vidui. A person should say vidui, should confess. And what is the confession? What is the vidui? What is the definition of this vidui? The vidui means I've done this negative thing. I regret it, charata, and I'm makabel of myself, and I accept upon myself never to return. So there's charata, aziva, and kabbalah. These are the three basic ingredients of teshuva, which is I regret what I have done, I'm changing my path and my behavior, and I accept upon myself never to return to such behavior and doing something different. So you have to actually verbalize this. In the Rambam, it seems that the mitzvah of teshuva is not to do teshuva, but the mitzvah of teshuva. This is the Minchas Chinuch on Shin Samach Dal on Sefer Chinuch where it talks about teshuva. Speaks a long arichas whether this is correct or not. A reading of the Rambam. that it seems like what the Rambam is saying, right, the mitzvah is not the tshuva itself. The mitzvah is when you do tshuva, when you return, you do these three acts, you should actually speak it. So speaking, the vidui is the speaking of this thing, and the speaking is the admission of sin, to say that I've done something. I've done these negative things, and I will not return to them, and I'm going to return to them back. This is what the Rambam writes, and if you read that a little more closely in the next pair, and two, where he brings out exactly pair base halacha two, halacha base. What is tshuva? So he said exactly. I refrain myself from doing those acts again. I regret what I've done in the past. I accept upon myself I'll never return to those actions again. And a person has to speak the words to say what he feels in his heart. If he feels regrets for things, negative behaviors that he's done in the past, he actually has to verbalize them, and that is what creates the completion of tshuva.
This page, he has a few words.
Yeah, the Etelumus. Hashem should know, exactly.
He should be his witness.
He should be his witness, right? It doesn't say that before, exactly. Also, what does that mean, the Etelumus? The Etelumus, this says already in the Farshim, but the Etelumus means you do something in your capacity to say that I'm ready to change in a real way. That's your Etelumus. How do you know what's going to be tomorrow? Today, now, at this moment, when you're doing tshuva, you really mean it. Because you can't say that it means that you'll never do this thing again in the future, because how do you know? It means at this moment, that's the way the Mefarshim understand this. It's important to understand it. It doesn't mean for the future. Like you do something there, and so my tshuva is not complete. In this moment now, it says that the Baditshiva used to, every night before he used to go to sleep, he used to say, Morgen is ein Garandish. So tomorrow's going to be very different. It's going to be very, very different. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. Then he says, even though I said this already yesterday, well, the height made now. Huh? There's different versions of this. There's also said about Mordechai, one of the Talmidim of the Tzam Selek. This is the word of a height made of God. Height made it. But today I really mean it. You mean it now. What's going to be tomorrow, whatever. But for now, you really mean it.
Is the Rambam's charata from the past in the negative and the Kabbalah and Asid in the positive?
Let's going to talk about this. Doesn't say that, right? Doesn't talk about Kabbalah and Asid in the positive. We're going to talk about this. This is exactly what we're going to talk about.
Another step, the Rambam for the
is Aziva.
No, it's when you face the same.
Yeah, the same place, same situation. That's if you know the tshuva is complete. Hadil is a person that when the tshuva is actually complete, if they come to the exact same person, Boisa Makam, Boisa Isha, at the same time, and you refrain yourself and do the same actions, but it's never the same place, the same time, the same thing. It's never exactly the same thing. It means we actually spoke about this a few weeks ago, whether you have to put yourself in that situation. Remember, there's a Kliyaka that the Sophaim says you should do it, you shouldn't do it. There's a big conversation whether that means you should actually, whether you want to know if your tshuva is complete, maybe I should put myself in the same situation. Otherwise, I don't know if I how do I know? You gotta put yourself in the same situation to know that. Anyways, yeah, this Sefer Mitzvahs and Sefer Mitzvahs, the Rambam writes this very clearly. You have to say that Vidui. Anyways, this is the Rambam holds. It's clearly it's the mitzvah of tshuva. The idea of tshuva is vidui. But what is actually the word vidui? And what's the reason for vidui? What's the reason for this confession? What do you need to confess? What's the sonageh that you need to confess? So the simple reason why you need to confess, the simple reason why is because feeling something in your heart. This is the Sefer Chinuch really writes. We should really quote it. Sefer Chinuch really writes that when you have a certain feeling in your heart, I want to change. I really want to be different. If you don't verbalize it, it's not misamas etzla. It doesn't become real to you. It works both ways. Both if when you speak about it, it becomes actually more real to you, and if you don't speak about it, it's not real to you. Like for example, there's a Gemara that speaks about Rebbe the day that Rebbe passed away. We don't know if he passed away. The Gemara says that whoever says that Yehuda passed away on that day that he passed away, Yitka b'cherev, we purse with a sword. What does it mean? You ever heard someone tell you, by the way, so-and-so passed away, say, don't say it. What do you mean, don't say it? It doesn't help if you say it, you don't say it. The person passed away. Now, you shouldn't be a person, the Gemara says you shouldn't be a person that walks around telling people that other people died. But if you happen to say it, by you telling the other person, don't say it, like, I don't want to hear it, don't say it. What's the difference? Because somehow, when you say something, it becomes much more real. It's a truth.
Also like a dream?
Yeah, that's very different. That's a dream that the interpretation follows what you say. The dream, the whole follows how you interpret. I think it concretizes and it makes it something that's very real. Until you say something and you verbalize it, because we're people of speech, we're medaber, and therefore when we don't say something, it's hovering. It's like not an absolute truth. When you say it, it becomes real to you, and also becomes much more crystallized. Sometimes when you have an idea in your head, and you want to think about it, so you actually speak to yourself. You say it with your own words. When you say something, it becomes much more. It's clarified. Whatever you're thinking in your mind, in order to express it, or you write it. Either way, Ksiva is like an amira. But if you write it or you speak it, you say it. There's this type of clarification that occurs while you're speaking it. This is another understanding. And then the other simple understanding is that this koil is ma'or kavana, which is brought on by the earlier koil, Rosh Hashanah, the Taz on the Rav, that koil ma'or kavana means that voice arouses intention. So it actually loops the other way. Instead of, not only does voice make things real to you, and it concretizes it and it makes it real to you, but sometimes speaking about it is what works retroactively, so to speak, like in reverse order, that actually allows you to actually have more intention. When you say something, like you tell your child, I love you, it can mean two things. Either going to be an expression of how you're feeling, and it's becoming concretized, and you're actually saying it, or if you're not feeling that love, the actual saying in itself arouses the intention to have love. So the verbalization of something, maybe I don't feel this way, right? In other words, either it's moving from the inside out, which is I have a feeling, but I don't. It's not really this amasetzel. It's not really truth to me, and it can't be articulated. Huh? Exactly. So I'm on the other way around. In other words, I'm speaking about it, and that creates the ma'or that arouses the kavanah, the intention. So this is the general understandings, the way it's brought down in the Menin's form of what the idea of vidui. The Ksavra Kabbalah has a very interesting definition of what vidui is. Ksavra Kabbalah is a Talmud of some Sefer, and he writes like this: "V'svada pirusha lo shelo yidal." So the next page, Ksavra Kabbalah, no? The next one. Ksavra Kabbalah, pirusha lo shelo yidal. One is the confession, like a person agrees, like I agree with you. He says that it's not, that vidui is not the main idea as aidas achet, to confess the fact that I actually did something wrong. He says that if you read the Rambam correctly, the main idea of the vidui is not what I've done in the past, but what I accept upon myself to be different. That I resolve in my heart not to return to those actions, and then I speak it. So he says if vidui just means a confession, admission of sin, if it says charata, or just an awareness that I did something wrong and confessing that I did something wrong, then you're missing the main point of what teshuva is. Because teshuva is not just I did something wrong and I really feel terrible about it. Okay, so what? I'm going to return to it tomorrow. That doesn't really mean anything. What it means is, but I'm speaking and saying, but I will never do this again, right? There's the aziva. And he says, also according to Rabbi Akiva, that you don't have to fire the chet. There's a machlokes between the Rabbi Akiva and Chacham if you have to explain all the chatoim. You have to speak it out clearly. Anyways, he says that the vidui has an interesting idea. He says, that as vidui means the discharging of sin, of something that's negative. It represents a casting aside. That says that they threw stones at me. Anyways, so he said, what's the idea of vidui? Vidui is some type of casting out. like ejection. So not a confession, confessing what is wrong, but taking what something that's in and just casting it out, projecting it outwards. Okay, let's go a little bit into a little different direction to see what Vidui is, and beheck them a few basic understandings. So it's brought down a lot of songs. These are more in it's a side that the idea of Vidui, and the reason why Vidui is done with olive base, right? You do it with an acrostic, Asham Labadana, you always do with the olive base, is because there's some type of damage that's done. So the very simple reason why you do that is because it's sort of like a collection of all possible negative things that can be done. Everything starts with olive, everything starts with base, everything starts with the beginning. That's one way of understanding. So you do a Asham Labadana, but it means anything, all olive problems, all base issues. But on the deeper reading of that is that there's a chazara, there's a returning of the oisius from their broken state into their complete state. That principally this idea is there something that's called Shiur Sakelim, right, the breaking of the vessels. So that's an AriZal, the Ariz, paradigm. I think the way he thinks on the understanding of the world is that there's sparks. I don't want to get into this topic, but this general is the sparks. Sparks are dispersed and broken, and the purpose of man is to elevate the sparks and return the sparks back to the original source. So the Shiur Sakelim and the tikkun, the correction of that is repairing the sparks that are broken. The Baal Shem Tov uses a different language, a very different language, which he calls Shviras Oisius. Not Shiur Sakelim, Shviras Oisius. Shviras Oisius means the brokenness of letters. The brokenness of letters is, and he talks about this in terms of like that there's positive tzirufim, like good tzirufim, good combination of letters, and then there's broken combinations of letters. And the objective of man is to repair the broken letters and to make them into positive tziruf. Okay, what that means is like this, first on a very super high level, then we'll bring it down very practical. Everything that's created in this world, the way things are created in this world is the world is created through dibur, through speech. Hashem said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So the Sefer Yetzirah speaks about the different letters of the Aleph base. Speaks about that there are 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, Shin, and there are 7 double letters, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, letters that could be pronounced with a harsh pronunciation and a soft pronunciation. And then there's 12 simple letters, like Hey, Vav, Zayin, which is the letters that correspond to the 12 months of the year, so 12 Shotim, etc., which in total there are these 22 letters. These 22 letters also they can be seen and they're understood. They can be seen as visuals or as something's not working.
Yeah, one of them.
So it can be seen as visuals or sound. So there's the AriZal Sarug. AriZal Sarug is a Talmud from the AriZal, and everything's saying what's going on. AriZal Sarug writes like this: that there's something that's called Olam HaMalbush, the world of the garment. What's the world of the garment? This, by the way, doesn't say Kisari. It doesn't say in Kisari or Chavital. And it's a little different system that the Mukabalim of the Italian Mukabalim are the ones that we have from the Italian, mostly from the Italian Mukabalim, from the Ramipano, and from that group of Mukabalim. That you say that Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. What does that mean? What does What does that actually mean? How do we understand that? So if you say that everything was created, that the world was created through a Maimoros, through divine speech, right? Which means that the letter combination of Aleph, Vav, Resh creates light, or it creates light. And the letter combination of Aleph Vav Resh is not just the graphic design of the letter, how an Aleph looks, and a Vav looks, and a Resh looks, and the combination of these three tziruf, these three letters together in this sequence creates a tziruf that looks like, that has a structure of light. And then it actually creates light. But Aleph Vav Resh is also a tziruf of sound. The sound of A, Vav, and Resh together in its sequence, which is the word Or, gives rise to the combination, what actually gives rise to the idea of life. This is just one of trillions of different types of creations, right? It's trillions of types of creations. These are, so when it talks about the Tem Amoris created the word, Hashem created the word Tem Amoris, mean these are like the root sounds of creation, but they're trillion different combinations of tzirufim from, if you take the Aleph from one word with the bays of another word and the nun of the other, this is without the right system in Shari Yechlamuna. You take these three letters, you have Evan. Right? The Torah never says that the world was created, that Evan, Hashem said that one of the Amaras, Hashem said one of the Amaras, let there be a stone. Didn't say that. But the stone is a variation from one of these Asar Amaras because the Aleph is one, the Bays is another, and the nun another. These three letter combinations creates the word Evan. Let's go back to the Olam Malbush. Olam Malbush is, the world of the Malbush is like this. This is why it's a system that the Ari doesn't talk about. In Shar Gdamas, the AriZal, the Redefining actually says that the Ari says that there are different paths, and he took a particular path in explaining the whole Seder Shalzos to understand how creation came into being. But there's one way to understand it, which is the way the AriZal explains it, which is more like a conceptual, cerebral, like left brain, intellectual way of thinking about it. Okay, it's a mashal, obviously, right? This is just what the nimshal is. There's other conversations, but this is a mashal. How from one became the many. We have to understand how from one do we have this? How did this come from Hashem Echad? How do we have this world? So this is one way of understanding. Another way of understanding is that it originates in the world of sound. That in the world of sound, there is what's called Olam Malbush is Reish Lamed Aleph Tzirufim backwards and forwards, but it's basically saying the combinations of the letters like Aleph with Beis and Aleph with Gimel, Aleph with Dal, Aleph with Hey, Aleph with Vav, then Beis with Aleph, Beis with Gimel, Beis with Dal, Beis with Hey. You have 200 Reish Lamed Aleph Tzirufim one direction, and then you have the backwards, Tough Aleph, Tough Beis, Tough Gimel. So it's Achav upon. Okay, 231 each direction. It's just I don't want to get it. It's not so much negay in the structure, but it's a certain structure that the Sefer Yetzirah talks about. The certain structure that the Sefer Yetzirah is very has a tremendous elaboration on what this structure is. But this, let's call it this this image of these tzirufim potentially has trillions of old tzirufim. In other words, if you take all the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis and try to have all the variations of the possibility of 20, let's say you take, like the Sefer Yetzirah says, if you take two letters, Aleph, Beis, Beis, Aleph, you only have tzirufim back and forth. But if you get to 5 letters, you already have 120. By the time you get to 22 letters, you have trillions of possible combinations. Aleph, Beis can be only Aleph, Beis, and Beis, and Aleph. But Aleph, Beis, Gimel can be Aleph, Beis, Gimel. It can be Beis, Gimel, Aleph. Gimel, Beis, Aleph, right? You understand? There's much more possibilities of formations of these sounds. So what is the Olam Malbush? What is the Olam Malbush? Olam Malbush is the motherboard, I don't know if it's the right word, or the template that has the all possibility of tzirufim of creation, of that could possibly come about.
Every tziruf means something?
Every tziruf means something, yes. Every means something, yes. Maybe not in our language, by the way. Correct. Every tziruf means something. In some level. Every possible tziruf means something. And that's the world when it says Istakel Be'Raisa Baram. Hashem looked into the Torah, so that's the Torah Hagduma. So that's like the original written script of the Torah, which is the possibility of all tzirufim exist within this conceptual universe. Obviously, it's not literal, but in this conceptual universe, where all the possibilities come about. Okay, that's like the source, the template.
Why is that called the Raisa?
What?
Why is that called the Raisa?
That's the Chachma Kaviyach. That's the Chachma Kaviyach. It's the first expression of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So in the spheres, the first expression is Chachma. So it's like a Chachma. It's the wisdom of the world, of all the possible tzirufim. This is one way of understanding it. Now, what happens is that in a perfect world, this is before man comes into play. In a perfect world, the tziruf, the way it exists in its perfection and its perfect state, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the tziruf to look like, exactly how Hashem wants the tziruf to look like, then trickles down in a particular thing. And then it's a tziruf that's a metuken, a correct tziruf. So let's say the word sus, samach vav, samach, which represents a horse. The tziruf, samach vav samach, in its perfection, then becomes and revealed as a horse. Okay. There's also in this world of the tzirufim, the opposite. When we have a choice to create a new tziruf. In other words, if I'm just living, here's a tziruf. This is in the perfect state of tziruf. I'm just a reflection of that. Then I'm in the perfect state. Let's say a person's a sus. A person's not a sus, but let's say a sus is a sus. A horse is a horse. The horse is being a horse. It's doing exactly what the tziruf is exactly the way it should be. Okay. Let's say a person has free choice and hits the horse. I don't know why. Let's say you hit the horse. Now, the tziruf of the horse in the relationship to you now is a davar sheidah betuken. It's something that's incorrect. The correct way the world has to function is that you have to be a civil person, and therefore you don't hurt the horse. But if you hurt the horse now, you're creating an incorrect tziruf. Let's just understand this. I'll understand this a little bit more when it talks about the Torah, because the Torah, when you understand literally the Torah, it's much easier to understand. From this other knowledge becomes actually a stack of berais, it becomes the Torah itself. So how that works exactly is sort of a little different conversation. But let's say there's the Torah itself. The Torah says, "Lo signov," you shouldn't steal. Lo sitzach, you shouldn't kill. That is the proper siruf, the way it exists in its highest form, and the way it's reflected into this world. When people act civilly and they don't steal and they don't kill, there's a direct relationship between the oir that exists within the tziruf, the way it exists within the Torah, and the way it exists now within creation. It says, "Lo sitzach," people don't kill. You know, it says about when Moshe, that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that Lo siga, that the Klal Yisrael shouldn't go up into the mountain during Mount Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, "You already told me already that they shouldn't go." So the Dr. Chava says that what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying is that if Hashem said don't go to the mountain, you can't go to the mountain. In other words, that's the reality. You understand? It's not like there's a tzibur. When the Torah says lo sirtzah, you have to understand this deeply. When it says it does not kill, it's not telling you don't kill. It's saying what is the reality of creation. The reality of creation when we don't corrupt the creation is that we don't kill. Understand? Because the way just like a horse acts like a horse, if we act like in a correct manner and we're aligned with the Torah, which is who we truly are, which we'll see soon, which is the Torah that's inscribed within our consciousness, the Tayyag mitzvahs correspond to the Ivar of the body, the 613 corresponds to 613. When we're in direct relationship with the Torah, Lo sitzach is not a tzibur. It's not a command, don't kill, don't steal. It's the reality of our tziruf, of our combination. Our default mode, exactly. It's our default mode not to kill. Khalil, what a person does, let's say a person, God forbid, steals. So what they're doing is, because Yisrael v'Araisa Kuchibrichu Kulachad, because Klal Yisrael is mushash, that's tlos kashin and dog. There's three links that are linked with each other. Yisrael v'Araisa Kuchibrichu. When you have three things linked with three links, then it's not a linear. If you have three things, Yisrael Kuchibrichu, Yisrael v'Araisa, Yisrael Kuchibrichu, Araisa Yisrael, right? Then you need two links. For three things, you need two links. But if you have three links, which is why it says you have plus kashin and you have three links and three things, means that it's looped. You have Kuchabrichu, Araisa, Torah, then you start Yisrael, Kuchabrichu, Yisrael, Torah, let's say, we'll do that. Yisrael, Torah, Kuchabrichu, Torah, Yisrael, then Yisrael, Kuchabrichu, Torah. In other words, it's linked. So if a Kadosh Baruch Hu is Kaviach, and the Torah is the template, and we're the receivers of the template, we actually can affect Kuchabrichu Ki'ilu to write a new Torah to be revealed to us in a different way. What does that mean? What does it actually mean? If we go ahead and steal, so first on a very super high level, when we go ahead and steal, the Torah that says originally loy signoi, that says not to steal, now is smudged, and now it says signoi. Because we created the loop, we looped it differently, and now in the tziruf becomes smudged. The tziruf is in its manifest form, not in its original form, because I can't damn, but in its revealed form, where it's already solved, is revealing the Torah to us. It's revealing now in a different way. Now it says signet. Now it says still. This actually affects us and the entire consciousness of man. If you think about this very deeply, what this means like this. If you think about this, what happens is a person who never stole will never steal. That's the irony, right? It's a catch-22. If you never stole, if you never said a lie, you won't lie. Why? Because that's your constitution. I'm the person that never lies. I don't know what it means to lie. I never lie. Right? In other words, there's a certain type of purity when you're in touch with that type of purity, which says, don't stay away from a lie. If I'm living that truth and I never lie, I will never lie.
You know it exists, right?
Somewhat. Conceptually.
It says don't lie.
I got it. It's outside of you. It's not you. In other words, of course, otherwise how would you do it? Right? Okay, that goes back to the problem of the Rambam in the beginning. If he only understood sin as emes or sheker, as a truth and falsehood, how do you actually do it? Because it's objective. It's not subjective. It's not subjective. Why do you do it? So the Rambam says that even objectively you can choose. That's subjective. Because subjective, evil, Tov Raz is subjective, not objective, right? That's the difference between truth and falsehood. And shek, that's the Rambam writes more. The difference between truth and falsehood versus evil and good and evil is either subjective or subjective. So it means either it's outside of you or it's inside of you. That means that you ate it. So eating it is obviously a muscle that becomes part of you. So let's go back to this idea. The moment you steal, or the moment you said a falsehood, your constitution changed. Now you don't have that purity of self that says don't steal. Now all of a sudden it says maybe steal at certain situations, right?
All over
Shama, correct. But what's worse is that it actually has a cosmic effect as well. In other words, let's say people are living, and you think about this, it's kind of strange because people understand this today. It's a very mystical idea, but this is it's a most current scientific explanation. I think it's called a cultural virus. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a phenomena. It's a real phenomena that when people, it's very cutting edge, exactly. But it's very Kabbalistic. This cutting edge phenomena, which scientists understand today, is that they see that when people actually get a virus, a cultural virus. Let's say when, God forbid, it's talking about suicide, other situations where certain people, when there's a certain bump of people doing a certain action, people all around the world start doing it. And there's no explanation for that. There's no logical explanation. And only there's like memos and whatever, this whole theory is how this works. But there's like literally you can catch this virus. On a very super deep level, this is what the Mukabbal already said is 100,000 years already. That how does it work? When we change the fabric of the metaboard, in other words, we change the fabric of the root, it changes the consciousness of creation. In other words, the reason why people are going to, the reason why people steal, if you live in an environment where people steal, you steal. Why do you steal? Because now the uber consciousness, the order that exists, or market, whatever you want to call this, that exists within this place, is now instead of saying not to steal, says steal. So therefore you steal. Yes, exactly. By the way, there's a lady says it. Same and all the animals, everyone did the same thing. What? You could break it. You break it.
But it started out good.
It starts out good. It starts out like the plant, the animal, everything's in its perfect state. Everything's exactly the same. A person is over an avera. Person does something negative. A person has chiyur. Yeah, it has to be. You have to do because you have the koyach of God. You have the koyach of matter. You have the koyach. Sefer, exactly. When a person has Bechira does something, what they actually do is they end up changing the very fabric of the source of like the guide. It changes the guide side, the zeitgeist. It changes
by going also.
The whole world. This is what Hitzchol Basar.
If it's only scroll, the rise will.
No. It affects everybody.
No, but
that's a good child. It's a good child. By the way, it's a good child. It's a good child because the shaila is by Shem Mitzvah Noach with the Bechira. This is the root of the shaila. And if you have Bechira, then it means you're connected to the Creator, not creation. In other words, if you say a person has Bechira, if ever you bring as Bechira, that means that they're connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu. If you connect to Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's the Koyach HaBoyer. If you connect to Kadosh Baruch Hu, you can create.
But they only have one link.
It's not relevant, but with regards to these Sheva mitzvahs, in other words, we'll say it like this in very simple language. With regards to the morality of creation, yes, it is true. If there's a certain society that is immoral, like exactly, that is immoral, the world will become immoral. Or certainly the place that people live will become immoral. You see this in the world.
How does that work?
Because the Koyach HaBechira.
No, but why does it change?
Because the Torah.
They change it. If they can't change the tzaruf,
it's a good child. It's a good child. I don't know exactly. Hey, no, but you must say that Shem Mitzvah Noach is also Moshe and Torah. You have to say that. The Rambam writes that if you Mekabel Shem Mitzvah Noach, not because of Moshe Rabbeinu, Mekabel go to Seichel, because it makes sense. It's not correct. Kabbalah mitzvahs. You have to do it because of Matan Torah.
But the Malas of Torah, the girl's brother writes that the Shivim Umos connected the Aleph turning to the Or.
Yeah.
Meaning the Aleph of Kanas.
Yeah, right.
Meaning that it sounds like it actually has to start with a Yid.
Yeah.
It has to start with a Yid.
Okay, fine, whatever. Either way, it works out. It definitely has a change.
But doesn't it come into Amira, meaning that a Jew has a unique ability to speak, that the words have sound and visible, like constructive.
But it's we'll talk about that. Let's slowly. I just want to go through some of the sources because I wanted to talk about teshuva because we have a lot more sources later. Okay, let's go over here. This is from Sefer Mikra from Mr. Gatalia. Mr. Gatalia is a very famous in Google. He wrote the Sefer Shiur. He's a Talmud of Rav Malafia. Kiyadua. So this is a quote from the Sefer Anikut. All the worlds are dependent on letters. The oisius, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet of Aleph Beis, is the source of all creation. It's like the stamp that gives root that creates the picture, the image that's created. Those are letters that are double letters. Hevel Zayin are the 12 letters. There's also Sefer all Olam Shal Nefesh, time, space, and consciousness, is created from these tzirufim of these oisis. Okay. That's what he said, the shtickle that he finishes. This is a very famous work that the Baal Shem Tov quotes a lot. Not from Sefer Nikud, it's also Tikkun Zohar. Rambam Chazal is from Chuma, Al Tikkur Uman, that there was a Uman, Kedimina Uman Aboyer Adovim, Sakin Tzur Kach Oisim Uman Lo Elam. That Oya Uman, that Shashur HaKadosh Baruch Hu Batzmusay, that there was a Shashur, there was a desire that Hashem had with creation, that there was like the pleasure of Hashem having creation, which was the original oasis of creation. Those are the original source template of the creation. So therefore, this is on an abstract level. In other words, this is on a cosmic level. That everything is created through these sounds, through these oasis. In Chassidish oasis, and more in the Torah of Baal Shem, you'll see from the Rebbe here. In Kutei Torah, he brings down the same nekuda, the same idea. He calls on the Dvarim Nivru Ba'osis. Everything is created through sound, through letters. And then he says, I date through the letter combinations and all different types of tziruf, and that's the way the letters are created. It's in Chavav. Gam nefesh adam u'blei oisius. This is the one. And even the nefesh adam is full of oisius, like what you're saying. In other words, the nefesh of the person, the soul of the person, is full of letters. Gap and afachtabi, because you blew into the love. Because you up when this was high. And Ruach Piv, we call it Smav, Ruach Piv. Umahavas, I call it. In Ruach Piv, that's Ruach Piv, the wind of the mouth, the creative creation. Now we have the Ruach Piv, the creative power through our speech. So our nefesh is full with oasis. The next page is Chaim the Chesed is from Chaim Chaika.
At what point does the fear begin? Meaning you have a baby. That baby.
A day of Adibur. So when he has a day of Adibur. A day of Adibur. When he has a day of Adibur. When he has consciousness and speech. It's a Rashi. Rashi says B'dei V'dibur. Ruch is the Targum. So Rashi says B'dei V'dibur. B'dei V'dibur, when a person has consciousness and awareness and speech. That's what makes a human being human.
But that kid doesn't have responsibility.
You're talking like a psychologist. We're talking about the idea of here represents when does a person really have self-consciousness? Okay, now we can discover. When is a person about das? You can say when he's 12, 13. The person really has day when he's 20. Okay, this is Doran.
What's that mentioned? I'm not sure if they know. It's the fire palace. It shows his baby, right?
Yeah.
What did he choose? He chose the
crown.
Chose the gold, the crown coin.
Yeah, the coins. Yeah.
Over something else. Over what was
the coal. Yeah.
But you have some kids that.
Yeah, but so the Malach pushed them and they made him.
But if a kid who doesn't.
Okay, we'll talk about it. I just it's a good shaila. It's a very good question, but we're not going to finish. This is the Chaim Chaiki. You see, this is the same from the same school of thought. This is Chaim Chaiki, also Talmud of the Maggid, saying that the world is full with sounds, full with oisius. And then he writes further on in Tshuva, he writes, Tshuva nikra shem shemeshiv adibur l'shosher. Now, what is Tshuva? Tshuva is to return the dibur to its source. In other words, to create positive Tshuva. We'll skip ahead. We're going to go back. We'll skip ahead a second. I just want to show you a shtickle from some of the Moshe David Valley. Ramat Valley. Because we were supposed to take a trip there, but it didn't work out. So now I'm going to yet. We're still waiting for what's there. Yeah. So the Moshe David Valley, a Talmud Chaver of the Ramchal. One of the most prolific authors, now we know one of the most prolific authors, Devaldik, a person, very, very, very eclectic, interesting person. I just read a whole book of his on Greek philosophy. Very interesting person. And the Ramchal said that he's Mashiach. That the Ramdu is Mashiach. Probably having the midst of Mashiach. Then moving you off of the Soid Chacham Sapir, the Ramvali has a Devaldik, a beautiful. You don't see it? Oh, I'm sorry. It says Sefer Kutim Alpha Bisa B'Tzurufim. Yeah. So this Chacham Satziruf, you know, is the Chachma of combining different letters. The Chacham Satziruf, the whole Abulafia is based on this, and all of the Kabbalah say this is like the highest level, and the Yosef writes about. Everyone writes about it, called the Chacham Satziruf. So he said, there's also called something that's called the wisdom of Purur. A new Chachma. There's a Chacham Satziruf, the Chachma of drawing things together, creating the proper combinations. And there's a Chachma of to fire something, to break apart. Kiyesh Chacham Satziruf with Tzir voices. This Chacham Satziruf is to combine the letter combinations, to create positive combinations. Again, the early Kabbalah talk about this in terms of Tziruf from Shem Hashem, to how to create different tzirufim of the names of Hashem, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, the Hey, the Aleph, different tzirufim of the name of Hashem. In the Baal Shem Tov's Torah, in the Torah Chassidus, what is the tzirufim? What is the idea of tzirufim? Is to create healthy, holy vibrations in this world. You're following? Not if a person speaks to someone and says, I like you, I love you, you're a good person, you're a good guy, that's a tziruf toiv. And so that's the way we change the world. Are you following this? Because this is the limit of the Torah. We're not talking about tzirufim on the level of the fire, Shem Hashem, He said a person says something nice to another person. You actually don't think you're not only helping that other person, but actually you're releasing a new tziruf into this world, a healthy tziruf, which in the motherboard is the correct tziruf. That's the correct way that things should be. There's a tikkun for those tzirufim. And now, you're saying, by the way, you're an amazing person. You're actually helping this person, and you're going to have a ripple effect in the entire world. Enough people say, you're a good person, you're a loving person, you're a healthy person, you're a holy person, the world will actually change. The reason why the world is such a low madrega is because everyone's saying that you're this, and you're that, and you're that, and you're other thing. And that's why the world lower. Because negative tzirufim has a negative effect on the consciousness, on the frequency of the world. And people pick up on this frequency. But this is the way it's understood in terms of Baal Shem. let's go back before the Torah's Baal Shem. So we're already talking about an early Mukabalim. So he talks about Chacham HaTziruf means combination of letters, and then he says something that's pure. This is, by the way, this is how you read a pidgin, in case you want to know. One of the secrets of reading the pidgin is right over there. If you're poigin, if Chas v'Shalom, the person has a pagam, you created something negative in this combination. The way to create the positive tziruf is operation.
Only a doctor could say that.
Exactly, he's a doctor. To disconnect the letters. How do you do this? He says the Seidel Yudin. So the first thing what you do is you break everything into yuds. You create everything into its original source. This again is very much connected to the Torah. What's on? The Baal Sarug, because the Baal Sarug writes that the first revealing of the first ois. Remember, the Baal Sarug is Torah, not the Tzimtzum. The first revealing is Olam Malbush. The first release from the Olam Malbush that was Mizgala became revealed was the letter Yud. The Yud is Yud Vav Dalet. So Yud Vav Dalet is the Kuda Kat Shepah. Yud Vav Dalet, Yud is the Nikuda, is the point. Then it becomes a Vav, which becomes a line, which is Kav. Then it becomes a Shepah, which has expansion, has value. Yud Vav Dalet is Nikuda Kav Shepah. The Nikuda Kav Shepah means that first everything becomes first revealed as a singularity. Then it becomes revealed as an expansion, and then it has vertical freely expansion. Exactly, the expansion. This, by the way, this also works in sound. In the world of sound, the first sound that a child makes is ah, which is a nakuda. Then they can elongate that sound to make something like a little bit different. It's not like ah, it's like ah, or something else than what they want. Something. Then they can actually sound a word. So it goes actually from nakuda to kaf to shepah. Nakuda kaf to shepah means that every ois in the world, every sound and every ois. But again, in the Rav Moshe of the Valley, he's not talking about sound. He's talking about actually how it's written. In the written word, in the written language, every ois, when you look at every ois, the ois already has a full form, which is already the shetach of something. But the shetach is made actually out of kavam, out of lines, and the lines are actually made out of nekuda. Nekuda is the point. Nekuda kav shetach is the original way the Chachmei Yisrael thought about creation. In words of Rishonim, Gamriel, the Makar Chaim, the Ramban, all the early Rishonim, before the AriZal, before the idea of Tzimtzum, that's the way they thought about creation. And they couldn't catch that. That's the way they explain it.
Also the shofar, no?
It's good, yeah, correct. So this is the idea of returning everything to the fire, everything. You break everything into the vav, then you return it back into the yud. What you're doing that the yud is also going back to the olam malbush, which is the original sound. In the yud kevavke, the yud is olam atzilus. Just follow this parallel. Okay, so the yud kevav yud is the yud ke it exists within the oir of atzilus, which is the place of unity, place of achdus, and then it becomes in olam abriya. And you see is with vav and the hey, really it's expanding down and it's filling up. So the oil exists in Atzilus is the way it exists within its nekuda, which in its point. So what do you do? So okay, this is the vart. Anyways, you can read it for yourself. The vart is you return everything to the thing. You basically it's getting late. We
have all the
Okay, fine.
We got this far, we're not going there.
Okay. Shalom Metzias is called Abu Sharshin. So what you have to do is you first have to look at something and try to reduce it first to its lines, then reduce it to its place of nekuda, and then recreate it. Connect the dots, exactly. But you have to take something, you look at something, let's think about it in nafshistik, on a nafshistik level. What does it mean? You see someone having trouble, yeah? So, you see someone's going through a difficult time. The difficult time is like this. There's a certain surd, a certain shetach, a certain form, the way this person's life is unfolding, that it's not healthy, it's not in a good place. So they're struggling. This shetach arose from a place of a certain kav, a certain line that was drawn into that, which created this reality of the shetach. But everything originated in a certain nekuda. The nekuda was the point in the person's life, that small little point, where instead of going this direction, they went that direction. Because they went that direction, it became a kav, and became a shetach, and this is the story that they had. You're following? Mm-hmm. So the nekuda of every problem, the point of every problem is that point. The point of departure where you made that choice to get there. When you want to help somebody, you have to try to figure out what is the nekuda. We're not talking about it like the nekuda satoy. We're not talking about that. What is the nekuda means? What is the source that gave rise to this whole issue? There's the shetach of the issue. There's the kav, which is the line that draw the person into the issue. But then there was the nekuda that actually. What's the nekuda?
You call that like the essence of the matter, or
Yeah.
quintessence?
Yeah, the quintessence, you can call it the essence of it, but it's also like the point of the point of the departure. You made a business deal with somebody. You went into to play music with somebody, and at this you didn't do it in the correct manner originally, and because of that, it became a kav. You became a shetach. You deal with a lot of problems. Understand? You have to get back to the place. Let's get back to the nekuda. Let's see if we can untangle this problem to get back to the place of the origin of the issue. And if you get back to the place of the origin of the issue, you can actually just twist it this way or that way, and all of a sudden it becomes fixed.
It's very much like surgery. You're going to find
exactly.
You
understand? This is what you're doing. Exactly. So on one level, you're talking about literally taking oisius. This is what Moshe David Ali talks about. Literally taking oisius. You take oisius of a person. You see the person's siruf, and you say this is the person's, okay, fine. This is the shetach of the person. This is the manifestation, the fullness of this person's story is now this person needs a refuah. Okay, so let's break this apart into the kav. Let's break it apart to the nekuda, and like literally, just take the person, his name, split it into vavs.
In your mind or on paper?
No, on paper, and then split it back into nekudas. Daven in the place of the nekuda. Now, if you want to layer this with the Torah of Baal Shem, or the Torah, what you do is you would say that in the nekuda here, it's like bri yitzir. You're going to the Elam Atzilos, which is the place of the oir. The oir is the mucker of the source where this became this issue arose. So if I have dvekas in the oir, which is the nekuda, right, the double-ended idea, not nekuda is the point, but nekuda, which is the nekuda of the lakus shebedavar in this issue, right? I'm davik into lakus shebedavar, and I have dvekas for Hakadosh Baruch Hu in the level of the oir. Now, when I rewrite it, this person's name, now creating proper structures. I'm from the nekudas become kav shetach. Now they're bringing, and instead of writing for refuah shleimi, right? This person is misrapa, and you have on a physical level, you're creating this type of tikkun, this type of rectification, of surgery, and on a mental stage, you're creating a new siruf. Okay, so the new siruf is you're going back to the place of the nekuda, then you're in the place of the oir, from the place where the mocker. The mucker of the shashuim, the mucker of the place of the ice is where it comes from, and then you're recreating a new ice. So you're speaking it or you're writing it, and in the Torah of Baal Shem, if you look on the right side here, you'll see this is the answer. This is the way the Baal Shem writes how you mamtik din in the sharsha. Mamash on this right to the right of this. The Gzardin, the decree is from the Tzir of Oisius. In other words, the person is going through a hardship. Why is the person going through a hardship? Because the spiritual vibration, the spiritual space that's giving rise to this person says the word Sarah. There's a negative combination here. There's a negative tziruf here. The tziruf says the word Sarah. Sarah is hardship. Therefore, the person is going through hardship. What does a person have to do to daven? What does the person do when he davens? He says, the volatiles, Mama Hanas filled with Sarah, yes, Shinaratz. This is a famous shal older Rishonim has. Ramban asked, the Tzemach asked, Shema asked, how could it be a Shinaratz from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Hashem says this person should be sick. You're davening, the person's, what is a Shinaratz? Hashem, and the other Hashem doesn't change his mind. So what does it mean that Shinaratz? That Hashem changes his mind? So he says, no, what's happening is there's a certain conduit of life that's coming down, a certain siruf that says Tzadik Reishay. In that negative siruf, it says Tzara. What you're doing is you're Shayat Siruf Achar Rotza. You're just changing the tzirufim, this combination that says Tzara, which is Archer. You're rearranging the Oisius now just now Rotza. Now the question is, how do you do that? Like, who are you to come in and start rearranging the sound? In other words, there's a Ratzon Hashem I don't know if you can understand this correct like this. The Ratzon Hashem is like this. The Ratzon is that this meta source is like there's a shefa that comes down from this meta source, certain type of flow. The flow has this combination of these three letters. These three letters in this formation, as Tzadik Reish Hey, represents something that's negative. It's hard. When it actually comes in and it reveals itself in the person's life, it's hard. All you need to do is you're not creating a new shefa. You're rearranging the shefa. You put the reish before the tzaddik. Now it says ratzon, that's all.
Keeping all the same ingredients.
Exactly. You're mixing it up. Now, how do you do that?
Kids had this the Scrabble board. We had to.
Yeah, take the same letters and you're scrabbling it this way.
That's
She says not, no, that's the Shiur of the Gila of the Ratzon. The Ratzon itself says this is the shefa.
The power is there.
The power is there. You just rearrange the power.
Focus.
It's in
This
focus.
is what we do on Shabbos. I would save after.
You say it exactly. So this is Torah Baal Shem. In other words, the Baal Shem is taking the Torah basically of all the Kabbalah that's lived before him, and he's giving it a more like a voidedika, like a more pneumistic understanding. It's saying like this: when a person's miskasher himself with the oil, which is the marker of the marker of the marker of that shefa of that flow, then that flow says that syrup, this combination of Tzadik Reish Hey, what you're doing through tefillah is you're connecting yourself with your mischaber with the oil. So this is the Baal Shem talks very strongly. Always says of having oil. A person has to connect himself with the light. When you connect yourself dveikus with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the pure, infinite light of Hashem that's beyond any syrup, beyond any ois. Right? Hashem is not tzaddik, not reish, not hey. Hashem is Ein Sofius. I'm miskash myself to Ein Sofius. I'm miskash myself to something that's infinite, to the quiet Ein Sofius. If I'm double in place of the Ein Sof, now through my verbalization that says Ritzeina Hashem, I'm actually taking the word sorry, making ratzon. I just wanted just one look at this here, because I don't want to get back to teshuva. What in the very simple level, on a very simple level, what we're saying is like this, and then I'll get to your questions here. We're saying like this: there's a problem, okay? There's a difficulty, and to undo the difficulty, you have to go to the root of the which the Ramdu calls the nukuda, Baal Shem calls Atzilus, or whatever he calls the oil, whatever you want to call that place, the origin of the place. Connect yourself with the origin of the place, and now create a new tziruf. So create a new combination. In other words, instead of it saying hardship, now it says pleasure. So what you're doing is you're going from something that's negative from one type of tziruf and creating something that's positive tziruf. This is the type of vidui, right? This is the way you're creating a tikkun for the shviras oisius. The shviras oisius says sorry. There's a brokenness of the letters that now creates hardship. Now you're saying rotza, which is a tikkun of the oisius, that now it says a positive thing. In teshuva, we don't do this. What do I mean we don't do this? Teshuva is a person, let's say, doesn't have air. Let's say a person stole. Okay, a strong person stole. The oisius, that now the letters that enliven this person, let's say a person, is okay, yeah, he stole. And the oisius in that now enlivens this person says ganav. Right? That's the sound that he hears. Not only on a subconscious level, but in the superconscious level. In other words, that's the oil that's the light that he's carrying. Unfortunately, it's a negative light. It's a negative tziruf. He's carrying the highest of ganav. Therefore, he's a ganav. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, he became, before you were not a ganav, you're not a thief. Now you stole. You messed up the board. Now, with the voice that you're hearing, the subconscious voice that you're hearing says, I'm a ganav. I'm a bad person. That's it. I'm a ganav. Now, what's the tikkun for this? What would you think the tikkun? I would think the tikkun would be, say, me? No, I love it. I understand. But the problem is, you mentioned the good example. We're not talking about the example. You're mentioning the example. You're still a ganav. You're a ganav. What do you do? You did something. You changed something in the very fabric of your being, right? There's something you messed up with something in your level of your consciousness, something, right? So how do you undo that? So what do you do? Now, one second. If you would take the model of tefillah, what would be the undoing of this thing? The undoing would be, I'm an honest person. That's it. You got it? In other words, if it's Sarah, you do Ratzah. But by teshuva, you don't do that. Talking about the bad. This is what I want to understand. In other words, if the whole thing is a rearranging the new combination, so why talk about? Why do we say Shalom Gavak Nephi? Why do we say that? If the whole problem is that it gave rise to a certain type of consciousness, and I'm a gazlan, I'm a thief. So say, alcohol. I'm honest. Why in teshuva do you have to go through a process where it says a gazalnu?
You have to let it out of you.
Wait a second. Okay. So okay. So you bring the vibrations. Why bring negative? Talk about positive.
It wasn't said. You're finally just saying it.
Why? Let's see a second. Let's see if we can see what's going on. This is like
the opposite of negative. Like Agana would be negative, which is you wait.
Yeah, correct. So you do something like this. If you look at the Amar Admar Zaken, you see the Amar Admar Zaken on top. Huh? Back. The Ikar Tshuva is a person who revives. This is a mimer, short mimer from Alter. Person who does a negative thing gets an adversary. This adversary you created, this malach you created, so it's the opposite of that. You do something negative, you create a certain energy. This energetic field, this malach, what you call this angel, is called by this avera. The person eats chazer, someone eats pork. They call this angel the angel that ate chazer. The tziruf of this chayas, everything is a tziruf, right? Everything has a combination. What's the combination of this energy force? It's called achilas chazer. It's called the eating of pork. Exactly. Exactly. That's what it's called. It says in the beginning of the Torah that Hashem brought all the animals to Adam to call my name. There's no one knew what to call them. We call them whatever you call them. You call them a dog. What's the difference you call? What do you need? You need Adam to call the animals? No. That it says why? Because Adam Rishon was understood that Samach is its proper tziruf for the word sus. And he couldn't call the sus a dog and a dog a sus. He couldn't do that because he wanted to understand what is actually the chayes, what is the life force of these things. The life force of this force is through the tzir, the combination of samach and samach. You follow? So therefore, when a person is a fire to zachet, person says in detail, I don't want to eat pork anymore. So then there's no letters to give life to this chayes. Therefore, the thing falls apart. In other words, you just created like an energy field around you that says achal t'chazer. You understand? This is very psychological true, by the way. It's not only on a very deep mystical level. This is very true. When you do something, you live in that space. You did something wrong, and now you think you're a bad person, and it's like you're hovering in this angelic negative field that's saying that you're just a shalmazel or you're just a balaver. I don't know, whatever the voice is. It doesn't matter. It's your makif. That's the malach. It's a makif, and it's giving you chayis. It's like there's a malach that surrounds a person. It's sort of like the chayis that the person's having. Achal t'chazer. It keeps on saying you're chazer. That's it. That's the voice you're hearing. So what do you have to do for teshuva? He says, I don't want to eat chazer. You're dissolving that negative quality. So the shaila is still the shaila is say I eat kosher. Rose, go to the positive. Why are you talking about chazer? Why does it have to do? This is bad. Something like that. Okay, so let's see one more Torah from the Gemara 9. The Gemara on the next page. Yeah. The Ikar idea is that a person has to say Vidui. The person has to confess with words. She's father. The When a person does a negative thing, he's poigim chas v'sholom. He creates a defect in the Torah itself. This is the 22 letters. What is the Torah? Torah is the 22 letters that created the world. When the person doesn't have Aveira, he's mechased oisis. The words originally said, im gana v'avar aloy signa hifur oisis min haTorah as a chelik shma hifur oisis min haTorah. Those letters are now nifur min haTorah. Nifur min haTorah, or it's in a different combination now in the Torah, but it doesn't longer say in the Torah of the nefesh adam. There's a chelik shma. And the chelik of the neshama and the Torah within you, which means your inner spiritual constitution, which is the inner Torah that says loy signa, doesn't say loy signa anymore. Not to steal. Now it's just steal on a super cosmic level and individual level, and they affect everything. Right? The whole world changes because of that. Is therefore when a person has to do vidui, which is confession, which is all through letters. Kazez as sisi very mischayt when a person says I did this and that, and therefore I'm mischayt on that. Then you speak it out and you say, yes, I regret that I have stolen this money and I'm mischayet and I used those letters and therefore I'm rewriting those letters in the Torah. So like this. It seems that this is the difference, this is the chiluk dak between, this is the subtle difference between tefillah and teshuva. Then tefillah, you're creating a new combination. You're going back to the place of the same thing. You're going back to the place of the oishis, the or, the light, to create a new combination, a positive combination. But in teshuva, there's a process you actually have to deal with the negative. You can't just say only the positive. And the reason is simple. The reason is simple, but this is the way it is. Once it's either with you or we're talking about other people. It's not relevant. There's three madregas, right? There's three levels. First level is it says loy signa, and therefore people don't steal. Second level, people messed up, and now it says signa, now it says steal, right? And the third one, you're trying to create a ticket for that, and the ticket for that can either be it should say again loy signa, not to steal. Or it says, I need the or it says, I need Yosh, something like that. Let's think about this in a very personal, experiential level. A person does something that's out of character, and then it becomes their character because they did it once. Over Hashanah, it becomes their character. They want to get out of that pattern of behavior. In idyllic state, in the perfect state, it would be you're saying, I did this negative behavior. It's not me. It's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not a thief. I'm not a liar. I never do this thing. I'm an ish yashin. And that's the end of the story. That's an idyllic state. That's a state of perfection. The problem is, once you did something and you did it a few times, you can't go back to that state so quickly. You could pretend that you're saying, I'm an honest person, but you're not an honest person. You just lied. So in order to get from being a liar to getting back to the purity of the place where I'm actually an honest person, you first have to have a recreation of the Torah, which is like the Torah of the cosmic Torah and the inner Torah, which says loy signa. You have to go through that process that says, I am no longer that person, or I'm choosing to be no longer that person. And then once you get to stage 2, then you can get to stage 3 that says, and I'm an honest person. But if you leapfrog the second stage, it's possible you could do this. I want to say that it's not, and it's impossible. It's possible. But I would say the more honest approach would be 2 things: either to go through this process, or to at least acknowledge that some people have to go through this process. That it's not so simple to say a person that's a shotgun. I don't know, whatever, the person is a liar. I don't know, for many years the person is a liar. Also says, okay, the truth is, that's enough with this. I'm doing tshuva. I have to let go of this way of behavior. I'm being an honest person. But you're not. The problem is, I got that on the deepest level, you actually are, right? That's before you mess everything up. You are. But you want to get to that place. The only way to get to the place is through the hard state where you say, I am actually no longer a liar. Which means I'm acknowledging the world of lying. And I'm just saying that I'm no longer that person. Eventually, you get to the place where you can say that I'm an honest person. You follow? There has to go through that step. And this is why there's teshuva where we need to say ashamnu, baganu, al chet shechatanu. Even though it's said like in a collective, the collective can mean either two things. It can either be that I'm not talking about myself, and there is such an avodah. There is such an avodah where according to the Ari, Tachnun is like a very, very Yardam Modus. It's like going to be other modus. It's a very serious thing to say Tachnun, especially in the Philosophium, because you're going like to the depth of Shal Tachtis. You're going to like the deepest place of the abyss, and you're saying there are people that are really in this mud. Maybe not. I'm not there. Maybe. Hopefully, I'm not there. But there's certainly people that I know and people that I'm connected to that are real stuck in the Shal Tachtis, in this really dark place. To get them out of the darkness, I can't just talk to them. I could. We'll see soon. You could. But sometimes, in order to get out of the darkness, first you have to acknowledge that that's not, you can get out. You're not stuck. You're not a liar. You're not a thief. You could say, I'm not a thief. I'm not a liar. You can reject it. You can expunge it. You can eject it. You can do vidui. You can let it go. And then,
You have to see it first.
yeah, you have to acknowledge it. And
It has to be outside of them, no?
yeah, that's another word. Yes.
I'm not saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Just the idea that it has to be
It has
outside.
to be there. It has to be, but first it has to be, I have to acknowledge, if I'm going through something that's really dark, let's say you're going through really dark, and the emes, this it's very important to call it. We're really the place of the oil. Remember, let's just remember that. That's why, because the highest level of tshuva is going to be sukkahs and chastera. This is going to be the highest madrega, where there's no chatasia, there's no shana baganu. That's the highest madrega. I understand. That's the madrega that we're going to reach after Yom Kippur. Like the highest madrega is even higher than Yom Kippur, right? That's Lifnei Hashem. On the next day of Yom Kippur is Gotztor, which is higher than Lifnei Hashem Tatar, which is beyond Hashem. But to go through the process, sometimes you have to say, if I really want to get out of the mud, and I feel like I'm in the mud, I first have to acknowledge I'm in the mud. And I'm not the mud. I'm not a shotgun. I'm in the mud, but I'm not in the mud. I'm not the mud. But I just now acknowledge where I am. And if it's not for yourself, you acknowledge for other people. And then when you get to that place, you can finally release it to get to the place where it's a place of complete purity. Now, paradoxically, the Rosh Hashanah is the third madrega that happens sort of prior to the second madrega. Because Rosh Hashanah, what's on Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah, you don't talk about sin at all. There's no mention of chet. He said that the Magen Avram writes that egois, which is aleph, is gematria chet, but it's actually not. It's 17, and chet is 18. So it's even the gematria is off. Chet is ches aleph, right? So the gematria is off, but because it reminds you of a word that may sound like the word chet, but it's not even the right gematria, you don't need that egoism. And so it means on Rosh Hashanah there's absolutely no mention of. It's complete Avdallah. We talked about it. Avdallah talking. So the Rosh Hashanah is Avdallah. There's no chet. I just got a sofa Sefer Namish before I came here. I think I shut the mic. I'm mistaken. It's working.
We're using the other one.
Oh, okay, fine.
It's
That
okay, shut up.
okay, fine. Whatever. That Sefer writes. This idea of going to Tashlach, right? What's the idea of going to Tashlach? It's a minig maril. It's a minig maril. It came in Ashkenaz with the Makar. It's a very strange Makar, but this is the point we do it. And the Shalach Kodesh writes that the reason to go to the is because the water represents Chesed, and you have to mitzayir tzuas a Chesed. which is pure kindness. Open the picture, the fish are open eyes. You give them the sarachim, which we talked about. Remember the eye that has no lids, no. So it talks about. He says that this is why it says Vayeta Yitzchak Lecha Rishtoi. And why Yitzchak down in front of Rivka? This is what's from Sefer on the Parsha. He told us that he says that why did Yitzchak down in front of Rivka? Because he wanted to see Rivka, because Rivka's dinner Rafia is weaker than him, and he's dinner kosher. He's the harsh than him. So he put Rivka in front of him to daven to see Chesed. It's more rachman that he was able to daven with more expansiveness. Forget a bracha. So in other words, but what's Taka Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is all b'chsadim. It's only by rachman. It's a state of avdol. There's no connection. And this is the Shar Kiyas, the last mocker. Sorry, we're a little late. The Shar Kiyas, the last mocker is, and all this wrap this up. Lavan Inin Tkir Shofar, the Alter Rebbe has a minor, says Lavan Inin Tkir Shofar. Understand what the idea of Tkir Shofar is? Al Pi Kavanas of Baal Shem Tov, according to Kavanas of Baal Shem. If you look at the next page, we'll go back to the Kavanas, because it was Baal Shem Tov. There was once sitting Tafshan Chav Gimel, 1963 Rosh Hashanah, and the question was asked, as in the mind of the Alter Rebbe, Lahavan in Tkir Shofar, Pikavanas of Hashem, Hechel Mefim Kavanas of Hashem to Tkiyas. Where's the Kavanas of Hashem Tkiyas? So we don't know such a thing. Kavanas HaMikveh of Hashem, the Kavanas HaMikveh we know is printed in Sefer Pri Haaretz, it's printed in a Sefer called Seder HaMikveh. So we know that the Kavanas HaMikveh are. But where does it say anywhere? Where's the Kavanas of Hashem on Tkir Shofar? There's no marker. There's like Lahavani of Kavanas of Hashem. What is Kavanas of Hashem? So the Rebbe said that maybe that's it. This is it. What the Alter Rebbe quotes, this is the Kavanas of Hashem. What's the Kavanas of Hashem? Let's go back into the Bible. What's Kavanas of Hashem on Tkir Shofar? What's the intention? This is the same how we're talking about. There's coil and there's dibur. Coil is a sound, dibur is speech. That there's no Kol is really something that's called Pasha, double Pasha, it's a straight word. That's breath, that's out breath. Cloud. Who dibur? Dibur is already where it comes different combinations of letters. Therefore, it's a completely different idea. Kol Pasha chase my heaven lev. Anyways, so what is Tkir Shofar? So after the one mimer, the idea of Tkir Shofar is the blowing of the hevel, of the coil, of the pure sound. What's the pure sound? The pure sound is the oars, the nekudah. In other words, on Rosh Hashanah, we're not creating new tzirufim. We're going back to the origin. We're saying the world was created through Eish Ma'am Ruach Hafar. That's why you blow a shofar is Eish Ma'am Ruach Hafar, right? You have Eish is the fire, the heat when you're blowing. The Ma'am is the mist that comes out of your mouth when you're blowing. The Ruach is actually the wind, and the Hafar is actually the dead horn. So you're actually taking Eish Ma'am Ruach Hafar in your hand, earth, wind, water, and earth, wind, water, and fire. You're vapor. You're taking it in your hand, and you're blowing, which means you're recreating the creation story. So in the Tkir Shofar, you're actually doing it going back to the oil. But in teshuva, there's a different madrega. Teshuva is a different thing. Because in teshuva, you have to not just get to the makar, to the source, to the place of the nekuda, which is, and then bring in a new tziruf, instead of saying, I'm a good bad guy. No, I'm a good person. I'm a balavet. No, I'm not. I'm a oisik mitzvah. I do positive things. Because that's not real teshuva. That's not going to work. That works in the world of tefillah. It doesn't work in the world of teshuva. In the world of teshuva, you have to recalibrate. You have to reconstitute. That's a good word. You have to reconstitute your constitution. In other words, you have to recreate it. I can't just say, I am a good person. Every person is born, the Shamash is to be Torah. Every person is born pure. Every person is born with the Torah intact. That's what it says in our inner Torah, in our inner world. Do not steal, do not kill. I'm a good person. Hashem created a person's yasher, person's upright. That's who I am in my essence. Then, for 10 years, God forbid, or for how many years, I lived a certain way, and I changed the combination of my life in a different way. Now I'm projecting in a different way. I want to do teshuva. I want to change my way. I need to get back to the roots to get to the place of the purity. But in order to do that first, I have to recreate the combination correctly that says not that I'm a ganav, that I'm a thief, but says that I don't steal. And then I can get to a place where I'm actually an honest person. That's the step. So the step of teshuva is also getting back to what to sum up the whole idea of vidui. Vidui, going back to the original idea, we said vidui is not just a vidui of an admission of negativity. It's also to recreate a positive combination that says loy signif the that. And ultimately, the highest level of the vidui is actually to say, that would be the highest level, right? Once you get to the point where everything's worked out, then you say, I'm actually a Yashadika person. I did exactly what you commanded, which means because I'm living in complete alignment with the deepest level of who I am, with the truth of who I am. That's the true reality of who I am, which is the madrega of which you reach on Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres, which is that madrega. And therefore, give all the bracha. That's what the brachas come down on Sukkot.
But how do you create it by specifying Shalom Begam?
No, Shalom Begam is only the second stage. Shalom Begam is only to recreate the Torah's HaNefesh within the Nefesh, that it should no longer say Tikna, it should say Lo Signa. I need to recreate that. I can't leapfrog. I can't jump over that madrega and say, "Oh, but I'm perfect." People that say that, I don't want to give a big statement.
Let go of something if you can't see it.
Yes, you can't let go of something if you don't acknowledge it. That's it. You have to acknowledge it, own it, reconfigure this quality instead of this saying negative. Now it says something positive. Positive in the context of something negative. In other words, originally it says I'm a thief. Now it says I'm not a thief, and then say and I'm an honest person. That would be the highest level of the vidui. The highest level of the vidui would be actually.
The splichos is like the Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is like drawing down. And Yom Kippur.
No. Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is part of still the process of a Seres Metzvah. And then where it comes really the drawing down of the bracha, it's Chastor. That's what Chastor says. It's no avoidance.
So we don't say a visual by superstar.
Huh?
We don't say that kind of video of Sisa
Maybe that coffers is after AriZal das Hashem Vidui. It's also olive based, and it's talking about what it's brachas. What's after is? It's all brachas. I look at the good. That's kind of a good word. I don't have, but it's a good word. That's the final tikkun. The final tikkun of the oisius is not the oisius where it's on this loy signal. It's after AriZal das Hashem Vidui, and then machus kolanim. It's not the gil of the kus l'mayla. That's it. It's brachas. It's all brachas.
The Shana stuff are kind of like in between Yom Kippur and the Atar Esadas, because it's saying like Shana, like save us, like help us get out of where we were.
Actually.
Also, Vidui is Yud.
Vidui is also Yud. That's correct.
And going back to the Ramdu Valley, it's like you're getting back to the Yud of it all.
But I think the word is not. We have to say this word. It's very clear. It's a very good word. The Atar AriZal das is the vidui of the positive. That's the word. The Shalom Begam is the negative. That I'm no longer going to create the tikkun, and that's why the Amshachas HaTorah, the new Torah for the new year, is Dafka Sukkos Torah of Shalom Begam. I'm Atar AriZal
They
das.
say it from some of the Talmidim from Hashem.
Yeah.
The whole avoid over here for the Rosh Hashanah people.
Avada. No, there's a meiser, there's a famous meiser with a Talmud of the. I think it's the Mitzvah Rebbe. The Mitzvah Rebbe. He was going to shul in Yom Kippur, and he met a poor Yid, and the Yid said, by the way, there's a whole family that the Poritz took the whole family, put them in and he wants like 1,000 ruble to get this shoe out. And he's a Yom Kippur, and his Yid is like going to shul and Yom Kippur says, "Wow, 1,000 ruble." He says, "I'm going to go to the Poritz, see what I can do." He comes to the Poritz. And the Poritz says, "Yid, what do you want?" So I want to redeem this family. He's fed there and they're sitting in a pit. He says, "No, I need 1,000." He says, "I got on with them." He says, "You know what? We'll make a deal like this. We'll drink, vodka. If you can drink me under the table, they're free. If I drink you under the table, you have to pay 2,000." He says, "Okay, it's a pretty good deal. To drink the Poritz under the table is a big deal." And they're drinking like Zexanites, the real heavy stuff. And they're drinking. This guy's doing them a serious nefesh because if he drinks and he gets the guy under the table, they go free. and he drinks. It's Erev Kippur, by the way. It's Erev Kippur, and he drinks and he drinks and he drinks, and finally the parts collapses, and the guards they take the family out, and he is that. This guy's flying. He doesn't know what day it is, but he's standing with this kippur and this. Someone tells him it's Erev Kippur. So the Elam is going for Kol Nidre. He doesn't know. He comes to shul. The shul is jammed. Everyone's Kol Nidre. Everyone's it's all He sees everyone screaming. He doesn't know what they're screaming because he's in a different world. He thinks they're screaming. It's Chasper. What else? Why would you be so drunk? So he starts screaming. He starts screaming, and then the animal was quiet. And the Mikvah Rebbe turns around and says, "Well, what's the mice?" And he sees that the Zid that's like the Lufin standing up. He says, "Well, this Yid, he already reached some Chasper already. So let him do his thing. He's already a Halshem by that." So that's not the AriZal.